Hi everyone, my name is Pat Hill from Lund Industries. This video is to help you install your power system upgrade. First, I'd like to start with what you got shipped to you and what to expect to use and not use tool-wise and everything else. I'm pretty sure there's a good angle on the table here. First thing I'm going to start with is tools that are going to be needed. I'm going to start with a drill, just a standard drill, with a couple different drill bits. I'll go over that in a second. It's be handy to have a smaller drill driver for installing screws, bolts, etc. It's not needed. A standard Phillips screwdriver will get the job done. Just your standard wrenches. You need a standard 7/16 and a standard 3/8 open end, box wrench, along with a ratchet. An extension helps to get in tight spaces. Socket sizes will be 7/16 and also 3/8 drive. I have here with me, just a 1/4 inch ratchet with a 3/8 drive. If you have a normal set of hand tools, you'll have what you need to do to get the job completed. Obviously a pencil, and you're going to need an 1/8 inch drill bit for your pilot holes. You'll see why later on in the video. And to finish that 1/8 inch drill bit, recommendation is a 19th 64th drill bit to make the holes large enough to put the 1/4-20 hardware through it. That's it for the tools. It'll come with this, your inverter, and lithium battery. We went ahead and pre-installed the fuse holder on the battery. Obviously, red to red, black to black. Positive and negative. It's a good idea to pre-install that to save yourself time in the end. Also, there's a communications cable that comes out of the battery. It's an RJ45 connector on the battery end, and it's the same end on the opposite end. So there's no way you can get it backwards. This is ultra important. Once we get everything installed in on the base of the cart, this cable is what lets the battery and the charger inverter communicate back and forth with each other. So it's a crucial part of the installation. I'm going to start by taking this apart. Obviously, drill driver with number 2 Phillips bit. Make time a lot easier. The best way to open this up is it kind of lift from the back, lift it up, and then push back that way. There's 2 pins that connect this lid. Bear with me here. I'm going to see that the most important part is you got these 2 alignment pins that align with these 2 holes on the enclosure. I'm going to put this off to the side. When you open this up, you'll see some. I'm going to bring this over so we can see it. Maybe I'll move the table. Go that way. It comes with it. You'll have the cord already be attached. You'll have your charger brick. That's what is for to power your computer. This obviously you can put off to the side. We don't need that till the end. It comes pre-installed. These are just in there, just to show you guys where the location is going to be. This one, I'm pretty sure you can leave in place, so just leave that as is, and you can move out of the way. You got to take it out? Yeah, you got to take it out, excuse me. And you got to take this one out as well. These guys, it should, in theory, stay just as is. You should be able to put it right in. Maybe minor adjustability, but hopefully not. Okay, your next step is going to be, you have a 4-sided box right here. We're going to have to take out these this way so you can see it. In order to get your battery box wrapped around the bottom of your current base, you're going to have to take these 4, I think they're 3/8 nylock nuts out. I'll do that right now. And obviously, we'll take this and we'll set this off to the side. And save your hardware for later installation. And then you're left with this piece right here. The best way is you just take it. By looking at your cart, depending on which one you're doing, this is a pretty standard one. You obviously have where the old DataCart inverter charger was on the front, so this would be the front of the cart. You want to take this, the three-sided end, the closed end is the front. Take it right in around there. And the best way we figure out how to do this is, you really don't necessarily need to measure. You want to pull this all the way back. Right here, you got the slot going front to back. You pull that all the way back. And the best way to do it is if you come along the side right here, you can actually just visualize and eye it. There's no need to measure or anything like that. On both sides, you want both sides to be equal distance from the H base up to the side of the battery box enclosure. We're going to zoom in on right here so you can see it. This slot on the battery box is pulled towards the rear until it's tight. There's no need to leave a gap in there.
You don't want a gap.
Yeah, you do not want a gap. Once you're confident, you have each side, squared up left and right. You got this pulled back towards the back of the cart. Then the best way is to go ahead, take a pencil. There's going to be, I'm going to turn this a little bit so you can see. There's two holes that are in here that are already pre-drilled on the gray battery box enclosure. The best way to do it is if you just take your pencil and just, circle and outline each hole. Once you do that, you are good to go. And you're confident everything's square and straight. Go ahead and take the battery box back off. Slide it out of the way. Obviously, you can see from the video that these were already pre-drilled. You take your 1/8" drill bit, and you want to, drill a pilot hole through each hole. It's paramount you do this, otherwise, if you try to use a 1964 by itself, it tends to walk all over the place, and this just guides you in the right way from the start. And obviously, you drill as you normally would each spot. After you drill your pilot hole, drill with the 1964 bit. And it's recommended, if there's any burrs on the top or bottom, just take, some sort of chamfer tool or a little file just to deburr it to prevent any kind of accidental nicks and cuts. After you did that, we can go ahead and grab the battery box enclosure. Put it on the same way we just took it off. Swing it around carefully without scratching anything. Have it tight up to the upper tube. Square it up again. And we provided two 3/4 of an inch, or two 1/4 20s by 3/4 of an inch. And what you want to do is just bolt it up as you would bolt anything up, top and bottom. Yeah, it's important to have a washer on the top and a washer on the bottom. And then you go ahead and you take your ratchet with your 7/16 socket with your wrench 7/16 to hold the nut on the bottom. And typically before I start doing this, I try to square up the sides left and right, double check you're tight on the front, and go ahead and tighten down each bolt. After both of those are tightened, just double check and make sure everything's square, and if it's not, go ahead and loosen it up and readjust as necessary. Then you go back, pick up your back plate here, and you put that back in just as you took it out. And reuse the nuts from taking it out previously. 3 nylock nuts holding the back plate.
Test it.
And this we're setting off to the side for later. The best way to do it, is we're going to take this just to make sure we're going to do a test fit to make sure nothing get out of whack when it was drilled. An important part about when putting this back on, we have the two communications cables that go up to the remote user interface. That's your display that'll be on this side right here. And just be careful when you're putting it back on. There's our alignment pins that go to the actual box enclosure. So just take special notice of that. Off to the side. You line your two pins up on the back, on the front, excuse me, the back edge will slip right over, and that just verifies that you have a good, nice, consistent fit around the side. Once that's been established, what?
Around the tube also.
Yeah, and around the tube as well. Obviously, you can check your fit. I'm going to spin the table, so I have to move the camera. You want to double check your fit. We want that to be as, essentially as tight as possible to prevent foreign objects from falling in. After that's been established and you're happy with how the installation's going, go ahead, take it off, pop that back edge off, push it forward a little bit to release the pins, take it right out, rotate it. We can put that off to the side for a few minutes. I'm going to start with the power inverter. The best way to remember this is you got your bracket right here. Can you see it? You have to swing it out of the way in order to get the charger inverter in there. Just put that in there. Line it up, and if you look on the closer side, there's a little channel on both sides, excuse me, for the inverter charger to cradle in between it. This way, if you put it off to the side, you can swing your bracket back around. There's a hole in it, and you want to align it with the factory hole on the top of the inverter charger. Now what I want to do is take that bracket that we put off to the side that we saved. Obviously it goes on the opposite side, and you'll see how it goes. It's got two slots, one's offset. The center one sits upright, and this offset one goes to it lines up with the factory hole on the inverter charger. He's going to come in and show you. Okay, looks good. I'm gonna go ahead and put that nut back on. You're gonna take your drill driver with a 1032 by 3/8 inch, or a screwdriver if you don't have a drill driver. I like to start it just to get it loose. Obviously, in order to get the back one on. Once they're both started, kind of square up, make sure everything looks appropriate, adjust as necessary. I'm happy with that. Square this bracket up a little bit. There we are. And go ahead and final torque these two brackets. Don't forget about the nut that's holding that bracket with the slots on. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten that before I forget. Okay. What? And obviously, since this one was loose, moved it out of the way. This one's on a stud, so all you need is a ratchet with an extension. An extension's not necessary, but it just makes it easier. And go ahead and just final torque that. Not too tight, because it's only a number 1032 stud. So don't overkill. We don't want it pulling out. I'm going to move this ground strap out of the way. Move that out of the way. And what I want to do is I want to open up the Velcro. And then the best way to do it is just tuck it behind each each bracket. And the next step would be to take the battery that you already pre-wired. Please note the orientation of each wire. You know, the positive side, we have this one pointing in that way, and the ground side obviously pointing that way as well, and that has to do with you know, space constraints in there. You know, obviously basic safety, it's important not to complete the circuit between the two terminals, you know, for example, you know, a wrench or anything like that, and that's why we advise doing it out of the enclosure, you know, just for, you know, safety precaution. And make sure you have your Ethernet plugged in. It only goes in one way, and you get it in there and you're good to go. So what you want to do is just take this, get the cables out of the way. You know, they come installed, you know, your kit comes with these four bumpers, isolation bumpers, and those are important. Just give it a visual check before you go ahead and set the battery down. Obviously we have them in here, so we're going to go ahead and set our battery in there. And what you want to do is you just want to push the battery as far back as you can towards that, and then in theory, you know, your battery uprights should be at the right position. What you want to do is get that out of the way.
Nope, comes around.
That way. Just want to fix the wires. So you want to get your cables out of the way. Just leave them hang for a second. The best way to do it is just to put a little pressure. You want to pull it tight. Take the opposite end. You know, pull it tight as well. And that's what secures the battery. Once it's in there, it's not going anywhere. Hello everyone. The first part of the video we went over all the installing all the components on the base. You know, obviously the enclosure, the battery itself, and the inverter charger. In this video we're going to go over all the electrical connections. Essentially they're all plug and play, and I'm going to go over that right now with you. Once he moves the camera down, you got a good angle. Come over just a little bit. Probably the best way to start is, you know, we'll just start with, you know, just this guy right here. This is your AC that'll plug into the wall. It's a C13 end. There's two coming out of the power inverter, and if you look at the ends, you can't mix it up. It'll only go in one of the two ends, so you cannot mix that up. And it says AC, you know, AC in on it, so that, obviously that's your in, and that would plug in there. You know, we advise, just as an extra precaution, just a little bit of electrical tape, just to put it around the joint to prevent accidental disconnection. You know, all you really need to do is just wrap it around twice. After you get that plugged in and taped, just go ahead and then stick it down and just kind of put it out of the way. And once it's down there, it'll be just fine. Obviously, your Ethernet connector is like RJ45 is plugged in. You have your other end here. Just take this and just, you know, gently, you know, bring it around. And if you notice on the inverter charger, there is 3 connection ports. Each of them are clearly labeled. I guess starting from now, from left to right, your left would be your smart battery, and that's obviously this cable to do that. And then there's a communication 1 gray and a communication 2 black, and we'll go over that when we put the actual lid on. So obviously this is a smart battery, and this would go on to the furthest left, and it only goes in one way. Go ahead and put that in there. You'll hear it snap. You know, since we were focused down over here connecting the smart battery, this is a good opportunity to take your ground strap that's already connected to the battery box enclosure. You know, we provide a number 10, 10-32 by 3/8 of an inch screw, and it's important that, you know, you make sure it's a 3/8 and you don't try to use anything longer than that. And also another important part is, I'm going to hold this, hopefully you can see it, it's the star washer. I'm going to show you how to put that on right now. You want to take your 1032, go ahead and bring it right through the ring terminal. After it's through the ring terminal, you take that star washer, that lock washer, and then you put it on underneath the ring terminal, and that guarantees a solid connection. And then obviously there's one open 1032 PEM nut on the charger inverter. It would be to your right, and below the 3 communication ports. Go ahead and get that started with your hand. Once started, Now, obviously, I have a drill driver, number 2 standard Phillips screwdriver will work just fine. Ensure that it's fully torqued. Now we can move on to the next one. Okay. Now I just want to go over the power brick installation for the computer. I'm going to move this off to the side so you guys can see a little better. There's only one dongle left out of the inverter charger, and obviously it goes in this socket right here. Best way to do it before you even go ahead and take any of the adhesive backing off is to go ahead and then put it in there. This placement is crucial, so that it's low enough so when you go ahead and put the lid back on, that it has enough room for that RUI, which is the remote user interface. That's your readout of the battery percentage and whatnot. I'm going to try to get a better angle here so if you can see that. You're limited in your dongle slack is what you want to, so it's real important. You don't really have to measure, but you kind of want to push this down. You'll see this will come over the other one, up and over, and it's roughly got to be about 2 inches below the top of this lip. But you want it to have enough, a little bit of slack in here, not much, just so it's not putting any strain on the cable. So once you're confident that you have enough slack and then it's 2 inches down, go ahead and take it back out and remove each of the adhesive backing. There we go. Set that off to the side. You want to put that back in that same location. Before you go ahead and press it down for its final place, just make sure that you have enough slack and you have approximately 2 inches below the top of this lip. Once you have that set, go ahead and put it on there. Put a little pressure on it. That's all you need. Okay, now everyone, we're going to go over the the installation of the lid. Obviously we have this. I'm going to flip it over so we can see what's going on here. Actually, we'll start with that. That's your RUI. That's your remote user interface, and that tells you what your battery percentage is, if it's on, if it's charging. It has a couple more functions which are detailed in the paper instructions. I'm going to flip it over. You can see it from the bottom side. There's 2 RJ45 connectors on there, one gray, one black, and then we have the pass-through power. That's going to come out of that power brick that we installed on Velcro on the back side of that. I think the easiest way is to, what you want to do is take your other ends here. You have your communication cables, you have your gray and your black. Okay, after you have the RJ, the gray and the black RJ45 connected into the inverter charger, you're left with, I'm going to spin this so you can see, and this is just off to the side temporarily so you guys can see what I'm doing here. There's 2 ends here, and if you notice, there is a little keyway channel. I don't know if you can see this anyways, but you'll see it when you're looking at it, and there's also a notch for it to line on here. Align those two. Go ahead and push it straight in. You will notice that this spins. It's not needed in this application, so spinning it won't do anything. Just make sure you have it fully connected. Put not too much pressure, but just enough so it's fully seated. And it's recommended to take that electrical tape from earlier, just as some preventative maintenance, and go ahead and wrap that joint. Two wraps is enough. Okay, once you go ahead and have that secure, there's a little bit of room down here, where you can put excess slack. That'll tuck right in between the battery and the back of the front of the unit, excuse me. And it's important here when we're doing, when we're putting the lid on right here. You have a little bit of slack, and obviously if your wires coming out of the inverter going back to the RUI, you just want to take your time and make sure you're not going to pinch anything when you go ahead and put it in there. I always find the best way to do it is just to put it in like that. I'll spin it around for you. Obviously this is the front view of the cart. You can tilt it back and you can see where all the wires are going in. Make sure it's getting tucked into an appropriate location. And then same goes with your little pigtail that's going to run up to the cart. And once you're confident nothing's pinched, now everything's out of the way, go ahead and put the lid on. And you spin it back around again. Once it's spun around, you can tilt back and just make sure that everything's where it should be and nothing's pinched, nothing's hanging out. Obviously, you want to lift it up a little bit, align the 2 pins. Once you're confident the 2 pins are in there, you can go ahead and put that back side down, and it will line up with the 2 holes left and right. It's a good time to double check and make sure that the tube is lining up properly and all that stuff, and everything's squared and centered. This is good to go. That we'll just put off to the side for a little bit. I want to turn this back around for you. And what we want to do is take that cover plate that we removed earlier, and we want to go ahead and reinstall it. What we want to do is take our cover plate, we want to reinstall it. Goes on like that. Okay, best way to do it is, obviously I have a drill driver again, screwdriver works just fine. I'm going to go ahead, you want to put the back 2 in, get that one started, get the other one going. Once you get those 2 in, you can put the other 2, that'll seal up the top right here. It's tight, get the other one. And once you get that on, the lower section is complete. This is your power, your DC power that's going to go up to the back of the computer. What you want to do is you're just going to run this straight up to the bottom of the CPU pin, and use the P-clip that's already there, or a zip tie if necessary for strain relief. This end will plug into the cord that comes from the back side of the computer, that goes through the VESA mount and is dangling up underneath the CPU pin. So that's that.